Hi, welcome to valuationpodcast.com, a podcast and video series about all things related to business and valuation. My name is Melissa Gragg, and I'm a financial mediator and business valuation expert in St. Louis, Missouri. I'm speaking today with Michael Koeppel, and we've been doing a series about various valuation issues. Michael has actually been working for 30 years in various technology firms, manufacturing, service organizations, valuing firms, and also financing them in the startup area. He actually owns Lakelet Advisory Group located in New York, and talk about why we would need a business valuation in estate planning. And this is going to be an area that you may not have a choice. Like the IRS is going to require you to provide a type of report through a certain appraiser and things like that. But why do we actually even need a business valuation? Like if I know kind of the number, can't we just put that on for the IRS?
Well, we more cases than not, we really don't know the number. Everyone thinks that their small, mid-sized company is the next Google and could have an IPO. And entrepreneurs, by their very nature, are optimistic. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing this. You have to be optimistic. My company is worth X because I put my kids through college and I know the potential of it and I know the market, things along those lines. But you need someone independent who can step back and take a look at the overall company, the industry, and the players within the company. But the key word in when estate planning is planning. A failure to plan is a plan for failure. You need to sit down and map this out and have a updated plan of the estate, what the company's worth. Now, when I say updated, I think dealing with so many estate professionals, the largest weaknesses of those that even do the planning, Melissa, years ago, is they don't update the plan. If you have an entity, a company that you've been working with and putting blood, sweat, and tears in it over, and it's 3 years ago, well, that company's not valued the same today as it was 3 years ago. Hopefully your blood, sweat, and tears is paying off in multiple folds, and you need to get it updated, the business valuation. The second thing is when you do a business valuation, you really need to get someone who's done this. And the Internal Revenue Service, more so than many other sources, are requiring a professional business valuator. He or she has to be an ASA, accredited business valuator by the AICPA, has experience in this industry, because you have to appreciate that when we do estate planning and business valuations for the estate, it's generally not an arm's length transactions. You're going to be giving the company over to family members, friends, whomever, children, grandchildren, and the IRS wants to make sure they get their fair piece of the pie, as well as the individuals moving forward. So the planning is a cursor. It's a foundation to do all your estate and everything else. Have a business valuation in there, because for most of us, the value of your company is the largest value of the assets that you possess, and you need to plan for its transition. And as you properly said at the beginning of this, Melissa, you have a lot of options today with regards to the transition of your estate, of your assets. But as a fundamental thing, you have to know what it's worth. What is independently an accredited valuator? What is this entity worth? And then you can say, okay, here's my options. You can swap it over to an S corp for a host of reasons. You can even do ESOPs, and I know one of our previous podcasts was on ESOPs, or you can even do a transition, work with private equity. But you have to know what the fundamental value of the company is on a current basis and have it updated.
Well, and I think that you bring up a very interesting concept when you first started talking about this, is that most business owners' perception of the value of their firm is far greater than the actual fair market value of the firm, even sellable value of the firm. Now, we won't talk about divorce because everybody believes their business is worth nothing in divorce. But for the most part, business owners have sort of an inflated idea of what the business is worth. And so going through the business valuation process, especially in estate planning, is really understanding what is the fair market value, what is the actual tradable value, and is it supported? Because in estate planning, we actually typically are recommending to not only supply the report, but even, one of my favorite people is Michael Gregory, and he was with the IRS, and he even says to put a letter on the front of the report so that you're really outlining, like, hey, this is the value, like this is 20% of this company. Here's the discount I use. Like, tell them all the relevant information, and we're attaching it to a gift tax return, or we're attaching it to, a probate estate return, things like that. And it's required. Like, talk about a little bit about the IRS requirements, or, like, basically what do we currently have to do in order to make some of those transitions?
Yeah, no, I think that I've had the pleasure of working with Michael several times since president. Some of the stuff, he's absolutely right, and we do the same thing. A one-pager. You don't want to have the IRS digging through and say, okay, if you want to find this number, it's on page 72. No, they have a one-pager. These are some of the key assumptions we made. They were audited financial, and just list it one page in layman's term. If you forced the IRS or any other party to go through it, it's just unnecessary. You're almost asking for trouble. Now, with regards to the estate planning, Rule 5960 dictates, and I hate you quoting the IRS, but dictates how a business valuation has to be done and who can do a business valuation. First of all, as I said before, it has to be accredited individual with experience in that industry, and that's paramount. And the second thing is, you must examine the three tiers of a business valuation: the income approach, asset approach, and the market approach. Now, the IRS is not stating that you have to utilize all three approaches to come to your final conclusion and calculation, but you have to state to the IRS why some was preferred to others. And if you didn't use an asset approach, let's take, for example, it's a financial service company, very little in assets, most of it's in the market, as well as the income it can generate in the future. We'll just explain to them in rational, it has to be a paragraph or two, or why that's not applicable. And they have a very detailed checklist of, I should say more than check, of what you have to go through and do it. The biggest catch right now, and it switches and trends, the biggest catch right now that the outside parties are looking at are the discounts. You have to substantiate your discounts. If you have a discount due to lack of marketability because a private company is not as marketable as a public company, you have to account for that. But you just can't take it out of the air like we used to be able to do 15, 20 years ago and say, okay, the average for a company, $50 million is 25%. No, you have to go out there, use Plurus or some other databases and quantify that and support it, because that 25 to 40% is such a significant number. And there's been a case made that perhaps that was abused, that pie in the sky number. So one has to substantiate that. There are many services out there that can help you do a business valuation with those parameters, but you have to use the appropriate sources. And the irony of it, the second got you with regards to the IRS, is sources. Put in footnotes, put in endnotes, document. If it's a website, put in the website, because nothing's worse. If you submit an estate planning issue for the Internal Revenue Service today, it's going to be at least 9 months before Uncle Sam takes a look at it. And when you're called, or even, let's even put away the testifying later, if you're called to, you don't remember every business valuation. You have the URL there, you have the footnotes there to refresh your mind, and have it in there. You don't want to have to say, oh, it's in my working papers. You don't want to introduce that aspect. The report needs to stand on its own. You don't want them subpoena or getting all your working notes or anything like that. You want the report to do all the talking. I know it can, as a result of this approach, it can be very voluminous to report, but it addresses all the needs that it does on its own. And don't use the template report systems. There's some software out there. You get what you pay for. A template, every company and every situation is different, and you have to be able to accommodate that. And secondly, you lose credibility when you use the template approach. The Internal Revenue Service, the courts, everything, they've seen so many business valuations. They know if you're using the cookie cutter software, and it doesn't carry much weight.